That's another thing I've noticed, walking away from it, is I've been a lot more interested in others, and I've been a lot more, I don't know, I've been a lot more in the situation. Like, it was I know that sounds weird, but like, I've been more present. And, I didn't even realize that. Like, I didn't even realize how unpresent I was in a lot of situations, and just walking away from it, made it so clear that, oh, I probably shouldn't be spending my time with this dude if he's going to talk to me like this. And I probably shouldn't, you know, be saying or be taking my friend for granted here. Or, so it's like, it's in both ways. Like, it just makes me so much more in the moment. And that's just weird because it's like, a lot of times that my mind wouldn't be in the moment. It'd be looking at, this girl's ass over, across the street, or, it'd be,
Mm-hmm.
look, thinking about, what I saw last night, on the hub. And
Sure.
like, now, no, like, I'm like, oh, okay, I can like breathe. It's
Mm-hmm.
weird, I can be in the moment and not have it be awkward, you know. And yeah, so I definitely would agree with, it having a large effect on not just mentally feeling, but, or not just mental feelings, but, physical feelings as well.
Mm. Yeah, that's amazing to hear. Yeah.
Thank you.
And I'm not sure what your experience was growing up, but like I've most of my life that I can remember, I've been kind of terrified of women in a lot of ways, just not that confident around them, especially women that I potentially found attractive slash could be interested in. Like I almost found myself like not able to even like start a conversation, or the conversation starter was literally so awkward because I was so nervous, and then in me being nervous I made her nervous, and it was just a horrible chain reaction. And it like I I think it was because I was normally just looking at women like that naked, and that my what I would do was jerk off to them. Whereas once I stopped doing that, I started to see like, oh, they're honestly just a human like me. They have their own struggles. It's like instead of like
Um,
gazing at them as like higher than me and so hot, it's like now I kind of just look at them and say, and just ask them a question like, curious about their life. Like you're saying, I'm maybe more like you're saying, you're more caring about people, and I've found that in just having that caring attitude, like, so what do you do? Like, why'd you choose this? Or just get asking questions about their life. No longer are they like, no longer am I putting them on a pedestal, and also I'm no longer nervous around them, and that's kind of what I've found to be interesting. And
that is interesting.
like I I go to a counselor pretty regularly, and I just honestly hugely recommend it. But I don't know, everyone has a different counselor or different therapist, and or doesn't like them or whatever. But mine happens to be really good, and he was saying like, Harley, even if you've kind of walked away from porn, there's always going to be triggers, and there's always going to be those instances where that chick's walking across the street in the nice pants, and it's like, he's like, biologically it's almost impossible to not notice it at least. Like, yep,
Mhm.
okay, yeah, I noticed it. But then now my new journey and goal is to like, okay, I've noticed it, but I don't need it. Instead of dwelling on it and thinking about it, oh, going home, still thinking about it, getting into the shower, thinking about it. It's like, nope. I tell myself, okay, yep, that's a woman that's attractive, but I don't need it. I don't want it. It's not for me. And
Yeah.
like, it almost like, I feel like when you have that vibe, I don't like the word vibe, but when you have that vibe of, I don't need it, I'm not desperate for it, I'm not just staring, the
Mhm.
chicks will actually notice and be like, huh, he's not that desperate. He has that uncaring mood of like, oh, whatever kind of thing. And like, that's what I've noticed really worked for me. And that's kind of, I don't know. I'm just speaking out loud, but I think
Yeah.
it's all kind of correlated to like, when you're just, I would raise women to such a high level of like godly goddess, like, oh, they're so beautiful and I'm so beholden. Where it's like, nope, they're just a person and I
Yeah.
don't need them. I
Yeah.
can. get dopamine by going to the gym. I can get dopamine by having a deep conversation. I can get dopamine by eating something that makes me feel really good, that's kind of healthy, such as, a
Sure.
healthy meal, whatever. So like that's kind of what I've noticed to be really useful just in like going and walking around, and instead of dwelling, like saying to myself, I really don't need that. They're
Yeah.
just a person, and yeah. So I'm just yeah. What do you think of that?
Yeah, no, I agree. I've had that a lot lately too, where I've been like, I used to, see a pretty girl, and I'd do like a quadruple take, like
Mm-hmm.
I'd look away, look away. Now,
Oh sure.
it's yeah, it's a lot different, I'm just like, why do why do I need to concern myself with that? There's so many other things that I could be having in my brain, and it's really interesting how just quickly that turned, from like even today I was driving around and I was really noticing it. Like it wasn't in my head to care about, how pretty this girl is. I was just getting through my day. And, I really think that is part of what kills, like, the motivation type thing is just because we're always going back to it. Like,
Mm.
and like, so it's weird how it all ties together. And, um, but yeah, no, I definitely would agree. Being aloof is the way. It's what can make, like, it's just what makes you attractive, because it's not like you said, you're not driven to like look at something beautiful. You're driven just to live your life. And to be honest, everybody's gonna find that attractive.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody's gonna find someone attractive when they are highly motivated. They're doing what they need to do, and they see a bikini model walk by. They just keep walking. They don't give a shit. I think that's super attractive. And I if I saw like a vice versa situation with like a hot guy walking past like a group of females, and they none of them look, I'd be like, okay, I see you. Like,
Mm. Mm-hmm.
it's just because I don't know. It's not just because of the fact that you're not thinking about it, but you're also an outlier at that point. And I think that humans really find people who act as an outlier attractive. I know
Mm.
I do, but yeah, like people are always trying to find people who are unique in their own way. And I think the fact that everybody's so sexualized now, if you're gonna be aloof to sexuality at least a little bit, it doesn't matter who you are, that's going to be attractive. So
Totally.
it yeah, it has a great effect on how people see you as a person. And like even some of my friends, like especially ones that are younger than me, they'll like I have this one friend. He's 19, and so just a year, but yeah, still younger than me. And he like anytime I'll be hanging with him, and we'll be driving around, walking around, and we come across a hot girl. He'll talk about it for like minutes, like dead
Mm.
ass minutes, and I'm like, so you realize that for the past 5 minutes, you just wasted all this brain power on this woman you're never going to
Mm.
see again, that is never going to be in your mind again. What is the point in that? What does that gain you? And it's just funny because like me and him were hanging out one time, and we uh we were going to this medical. I'm not gonna say what it was, but we were going someplace to visit a friend who was hurt, and like we were getting into this parking garage, and we drove back past this, like, she was pretty. Like I didn't know who she was at first, but I did thought I recognized her. Anyway, we drove past this girl who was walking, and we go and park, and like the whole time that I'm parking the car, my friend is talking about this girl that we just passed, And like, it was so dark in that garage, you could barely see this woman. Like, it was just like so pointless that he was just kept going on about it. And like, we're getting out of the car, he's still going on about it, and I'm like, dude, just shut up. Like, I don't want to hear her. I don't want her to hear us, and because she was still like not that far away from us in the garage. Anyway,
Mm.
we walk up to where she was because she was near the entrance of the building from the garage, and what was funny is we knew her. She was like our friend's like friend, and it was just funny because the second he like realized that he like knew who she was, oh, all of a sudden she became a person, and it's just like,
Mm.
well, where does that make sense? Why wasn't she a person before? And like, it's just that really made me like, come on, dude, like, you gotta be better than that, like, that really made me just kind of chuckle, like, cause I don't know, it's just, I mean, chuckle in a sad way, but yeah, it's
Mm-hmm.
kind of sad because the second that he realized he knew her, oh, okay, she's a person now, and it's just, what are you doing? And yeah, so I really agree with that. So yeah.
Yeah, it's an interesting story. And I like that you said, like, because our society's so sexualized, if you're a person who's like doesn't seem to be as fixated on it, you being that outlier, you now can be, you have a different angle. Like, so many guys, they're so predictable. It's like so many chicks, it's like, oh, they're thinking about sex. And it's like, but
Mm.
if you can be different and be the guy that's like, well, I have a lot more thoughts than just that, and I view you as a person, and I see your level of depth, and I can see, you know, when they can feel and see that, you're already going to be ahead of so many other guys that are just jerking and
Hmm.
talking with their buddies about the hot chick either online that they don't know, or
Yeah.
like you said, the person they're walking by. And that's kind of like what my goal is to be like, if I get married, I want my wife, I want my kids, I want my family to know me as the guy who's like, I stand up against porn. It's just, I don't have those conversations about how thick that chick is. I don't, that's just not me. And even though that might isolate me from some circles, I feel like it can be like, I feel like sometimes if you can say to a person who's like fixating on a woman in a kind of a loving way, like, hey man, don't you think there's better things to talk about? Or what do you think she would think if she heard you say that? Or, like, you now can be that kind of role model that's unique and has a different view. Like,
Hmm.
because I honestly feel like you're kind of a person who's very deep and introspective and very reasonable with what you say. And it's like, if you reasonably explain to someone who's like going on and on about a chick, you might change kind of their view of the world, kind of. And so that's where, I'm sure this podcast is going to do that for people, because they're going to be like, who's Drew? Well, he's this guy who's like just opened up about all these problems that no one opens up about. Dang, I look up to Drew. And it's like, that's true. I do too, because he's able to do that and have a very mature view of the world. And it's like, you know, honestly, I feel like I totally agree with your analysis on be unique. Don't just be like other guys who are just so fixated on sex. Be
Hmm.
the guy who's deeper, better, more attractive, and yeah,
And like,
really I like
just
that.
think just think about how nice of a life that would be to live. Just think about all the good you could do, just like trying to role model that. Like, I don't know, like trying to role model purity and love. Like, I think that is, I think that's just really cool. Like, to be a beacon of that idea of like keeping love the purest it can. And I don't know, like, I just, yeah, it just is interesting because I felt so much better in like a few weeks just pulling away from it. I wonder how good I'll feel in a year or two, and yeah, I just feel like a lot of guys miss out on that, on living life the way they should, just because, yeah, it's just so sexualized. So yeah.
Yeah, man. Yeah, it's. I'm gonna quick read this Bible verse. Matthew 5:28 says, "But I say to you that everyone who looks at a woman with lustful intent has already committed adultery with her in his heart." It's so true. It's like
Hmm.
your heart is just gonna be corrupted if you regularly lust and covet and want women that you really don't actually want. And